I want to welcome everyone to the Diverse Jewish Books podcast, where today we have debut author and illustrator Hannah Shafiroff coming out with her first book this September. And that debut, My Little Book of Big Jewish Holidays, was just featured on Zibby's most anticipated list for fall 2025. How do
Hi,
you feel about that,
everybody.
Hannah?
Oh, I feel amazing. It was such a surprise. It was such a great email to receive. I was so excited, so honored.
Your first event's coming up soon as well. Can
Mhm.
you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I will be doing a signing for the Zibby's most anticipated list. And then also that weekend will be the official book launch for the book. So we're going to have a bunch of friends and family and community members come together. I'll give like a little author talk, a Q&A. We'll have books for sale and signing. And of course, there'll be food. It's a Jewish book. It's an event. We got to have food for people.
So that is a great transition to my favorite way to kick off every podcast. Can you tell me about yourself and what being Jewish looks like to you?
Yes. So a little bit about me. I think I was always on the path to becoming a book creator. I was always writing and illustrating and coming up with different little stories. And I would even try to make books, hardcover books. Like I would cut out cardboard and spines and try to like put it together to make it seem so official. And that eventually just set me down the path to go to school for art and to finally become a children's book illustrator. And Judaism for me, it's about community and it's about connection. It's these traditions that have been passed down for years and years and years from family and through community. It's about having a home and a place to go wherever you are in the world. There's like we would sing a song in Hebrew school, wherever you go, there's always someone Jewish, so you never would feel alone. And it's, of course, about good food and good celebrations.
Can you tell me how your Jewish identity has influenced your work as an artist and a
Yeah.
storyteller?
Yeah. I definitely grew up in a strong Jewish household. We would go to Tot Shabbat when I was little. I would go to Hebrew school, had my bat mitzvah. We would celebrate Shabbat at home. We would celebrate the holidays. I would go to synagogue and I had my Hebrew school class and all of my friends. And there was always a strong Jewish identity, especially like in school and going to Hillel events. And after I graduated, there became a point where I started to do a little more learning on my own. I started to read some Torah commentary. I started to study the holidays a bit more to gain a better understanding of what this all meant. And I was like, wait a second, this is actually really important. This is actually really cool stuff. And this is our history. This is what made the Jewish people. And at that point, I decided I'm going to make a series of illustrations about the Jewish holidays. And I did that with the illustration department podcast. It was Giuseppe Castellano. I did a mentorship with him. And that was when I made the series of the illustrations. I did 12 holidays, I believe, for that one. And it was also simultaneously when my agent found me and signed me on. And so I was working on these two things together. And when my agent would send out my work, it was usually non-Jewish stuff. It was just regular, secular, for lack of a better word, illustrations. But the art directors saw the holiday series on my website and they were like, wait, this is great. If she does something, let us know about the holidays. And that was when my agent and I we talked and we said, let's make a book about the holidays. I'm gonna fill a gap in the market and create a treasury for the holidays that hasn't been made for maybe about 20 years or so. Something that is informative, accessible, and explains all this important stuff that I've been studying now for a while.
So you let the market inform the direction that you were going to go with this
Mhm.
story.
Yeah, I didn't want people to be intimidated by a lot of information. I wanted people to be able to read something and feel like Judaism was welcoming them. I wanted to create something that was not just for Jewish families, but for interfaith families raising Jewish kids, for classrooms who had Jewish students, for people who had Jewish friends and family, and wanted to better understand the traditions and the rituals. And I didn't want them to feel like this is too much or I have to go research something on my own to fill in some gaps. I wanted it to be presented in a way that felt joyous and welcoming and easy to understand and made you want to join in on the celebrations too.
What was your inspiration behind that for having this community, this accessible experience of these 10 Jewish holidays?
Yeah, I think I just see it a lot in community. You see people who maybe aren't as, maybe they grew up Jewish, but they're not as familiar with the holidays and traditions. Or maybe they married someone who's Jewish and they're not Jewish themselves, but they want to have a better understanding. And maybe they are Jewish and maybe they know things already. They know a lot of the traditions and the rituals and the culture, and they want a simple and easy and fun way to explain it to kids, to a classroom, and even to friends who don't know that much about it because they're not Jewish, but they're supportive and they want to be a part of that celebration as well.
Can you talk about how you chose how you portrayed each of the holidays?
You mean like the why and the how and all of the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted it to be something that you didn't need to flip to back matter for. We don't have any back matter in the book. The book is the book. Everything that you would need to know about the holiday is in those pages, from dates to pronunciations to traditional foods and rituals. It's all right there. It's all accessible and it's waiting for you.
Can you share more about the research process for the book with us?
It was kind of hefty. I knew most of it myself from growing up, from my own research. Aside from making the book, I knew a lot of it. A lot of the research was fact checking myself. It was going, I think this is it. Let me make sure that's it. And it was a lot of checking the spelling. It was a lot of double checking dates. It was because it's nonfiction. It needs to be correct. And so it was a lot of checking, triple checking, quadruple checking. It's kind of like when you think you turned the stove off, but you need to go back half a dozen times just to make sure. It was sort of like that. It was like, okay, it says it there. Let me make sure it says it over here too. Okay, it says it there. Let me check one more place and also make sure that it says it.
And as you were doing the research and as you're figuring out the holidays that you were going to include in this, did you ever have any question about the 10 holidays that you included and making sure that you had like the depth for them that you wanted to convey? How did you pick the flight level of the information you shared?
A lot of it was determined by the page limit. I had a 64 page limit, and full disclosure. And so it was a lot of like, okay, what needs a lot of pages? So I gave a lot of pages to Pesach because there's a big story behind that. There's a big ritual, the Seder behind that. And then for holidays that don't have as much background like Tu B'Shvat, I gave one spread for that. So it was a lot of deciding things that have a bigger story, things that have more rituals, things that need a little bit extra explanation. I'd go into some more detail. So it was a little bit of pick and choose, and then it was also a lot of playing around with like the thumbnails and the sketches and seeing it with the text together to being like, this can all work, right? Like not making sure the art would come out like teeny tiny with like a lot of text. It was a bit of a puzzle, but it was really fun to put together.
As an author and illustrator, how does that influence your crafting of the story when you're thinking about something? What comes first for you, the words or the art?
Mm, I'd say a little bit more the art. It can kind of unfold, I say, like a movie in my head. Like I'll kind of see the images running through and deciding what's the moment that I want to capture in that movie, and then seeing how the words play into it and deciding what words am I showing in the pictures that I don't need to write out then? And it's also deciding how can I put all of this in there without sacrificing anything, because there's a lot of information in there. There's a lot of information, and I really wanted to be able to have fun with the art. And so it was putting it together that and seeing it come. It was it was it was one of those things where seeing it come together, seeing that puzzle finally being put together, um, it was really fun. It was really fun to do, because there were a few times where I was like, "Oh, this is a lot of text," or "Oh my gosh, I'm barely going to have any room for a picture." And it all turned out good. It all turned out good. But there was a few moments there where I was like, "Wait, how am I going to make this work?" And a few moments where I said, "Oh, this is why people haven't done this for a while."
And so in some way you let the art influence the words and the words then influence the art and had this like back and forth process.
Yeah, it was a true marriage of the words and the art together, and to see how one influenced the other.
Can you talk, you have such a unique style to your art. Can you
Yeah.
talk about how you do it and like what mediums that you use?
Yeah, I use acrylic wash and colored pencil. You can see some of it on the table over there. And I'm a big fan of Liquitex. Sponsor me. And I love it because traditional gouache, if you like go back over it with another wet layer, it lifts up the bottom one. But the acrylic gouache is water resistant, so I can put over layers, I can put over patterns, I can do washes, I can have so much fun with it. And the colored pencil, I can really go in for some detail. I can go in for a lot of mark making. I love when you can see the artist's hand in the art that they made. That's what I really love to show. Oh, and then there were a few little digital touch ups here and there, but that's.
And we can, like, I'm looking at this picture from Hanukkah right now, and we see King Antiochus and we see the Maccabees, and like you can see the colored pencil in the beard hair and even some arm hair on some of the men, with their shields. And it's so intricate and so beautiful. And I think there's like don't help me with the phrasing, but like there's just like a childlike whimsy to it. There's so much color and vibrancy to your art.
I love putting in the color. I try not to use like any muted colors. I try not to use like a pure black or even a pure brown. I like to, if like someone has like a dark brown hair, I'll use like a really deep purple to create the shadow in there. Kind of like the Impressionists from those master studies. They didn't use any dark colors for, well, they used dark colors for shadows, but it wasn't like a black like you would see in Renaissance paintings. They used color in the shadows, and I love to take inspiration from that.
If you're ever doing like an art class, how to illustrate children's books, I am there for that.
I love it.
What was the most challenging aspect for you with crafting this story?
I would say working on the text. There was, because there's a lot of info, for a lot of information for all of the holidays, and it was deciding what's the most important parts and how can I explain this in a simple, accessible and easy way, something that feels welcoming, something that doesn't feel overwhelming, because there's nothing worse than when you're trying to learn something new or trying to explain something and all the information is so overwhelming and so intimidating. I wanted to be able to break that down, and that took a lot of playing around. It took a lot of rewriting and reworking and really diving deeper than I ever have into the understanding of these holidays to get that.
Was that the biggest surprise for you in writing this, or was there something else that was so surprising that stood out?
I don't know if you could call it surprising, but I was shocked at how quickly I could get the art done. I had 8 weeks to make all that art.
No.
Yes, I had 8 weeks.
Okay, tell me more about your overall timelines here. I'm intrigued.
Oh yeah, so it was I got the contract in 23, and after a bit we started working. Like I'd submitted a proposal. My agent had submitted a proposal for this idea that I'd created. And once we had the contract, we got to work on taking the proposal, because it had a summary of all holidays, and filling it out and adding in more detail, working it out, revising it, simplifying it, getting notes back, making some edits, getting some more notes back, making more edits, and then sending in, finally, once the manuscript was approved, it was sending in black and white sketches, getting some notes, doing some color roughs, making some edits on some more notes, making sure that all the text could fit in to the sketches, because it's not a traditional picture book where it's just like a sentence or two on a page. We're talking paragraphs, and so it's like, okay, this needs to fit. We can't have things bumping into each other. So that took some reworking. And then usually publishing needs the manuscript and the sketches and everything all done about a year before it comes out, 9 months or a year before it comes out. And so at that point, we're like, it's go time. And I was talking with my team, and they said, "Can you do that?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I can." And so I was working at a pace of making about one illustration a day. And I did not get carpal tunnel, surprisingly enough. But it was so great. I enjoyed it so much. I was listening to audiobooks, was listening to music, and I was having a great time on it, honestly.
Do you have like a particularly good pump up song or podcast?
Oh, well, if we're pumping ourselves up, it's going to be anything by Pitbull.
Excellent.
I talk about that on this podcast? I don't know. Yeah, I love Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide, and then for audiobooks, I was listening to a lot of Gene Meltzer's books, Jewish rom com. Gotta love it, and it kept me in my chair. I was listening, I was working, and it was such a great blend.
The queen of Jewish romance and Pitbull.
Yes.
What an intense and exciting 8 weeks
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
for a 64-page book.
Yep. Did it
So
though.
is that a pace you ever want to go at again?
I could do it again, because that's like creative work, right? You get these short, intense periods where you are just going nonstop, and then you get some time. You like decompress a little bit, you unwind a little bit, you start sketching again, just for yourself and for fun, and then it starts sparking a new idea, and then you take off on that, and it goes all over again. I love it.
And you got the contract on the basis of a proposal
Mhm.
specifically.
Yeah, yeah. We did not write the whole thing. I wrote up the proposal, so it was a summary of the holidays. I created about 3 or 4 illustrations, just to kind of give an idea of what it would be like, and it definitely morphed since the proposal. The finished product is different than the proposal, just because it's a fully completed book.
There was never a point when you didn't expect to illustrate what you wrote? It was always a package deal with this.
Delulu is the Salulu, as they say. I went to school for illustration, and I knew that illustration was what I always wanted to do. And so if I couldn't illustrate it, I would have been like, okay, bye. And luckily I didn't have that. I didn't have that worry. Maybe it was, yeah, Delulu. I don't know.
The Lulu is the Salulu.
It's the Salulu.
So, your path to agenting and publication for this book
Mhm.
is no path is the same, but I would love to hear more about your path because one of the things you mentioned here is that your agent found you.
Yes, yes.
Can
So
you talk a little bit about that?
I got my BFA in illustration from Cal State Long Beach, and I graduated in December 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. I got it done. I got it done. I absolutely loved college. I loved the experience. Was not a fan of finishing online, but then again, who is? And because there's such a great camaraderie in art classes in person, and it's lost a little bit when it's online, but we rallied, we all got it done. And after that, I took off 2 weeks from like that winter break finishing, the semester finishing to the new year. I was like, I'm not doing anything. I'm taking a vacation. I am going to hibernate. I am going to couch rot, the whole thing. And then in the new year, I started to set up an Etsy shop. I sold some prints. I sold cards. I got a job as an art teacher for young kids, which was such a great experience, so much inspiration, and they're crazy, some of them. But it was so much fun. And I was also working on developing my illustration portfolio, because I knew going into college that I wanted to illustrate children's books. And so in college, the assignments that we were given, we had a lot of freedom and freedom of creativity to interpret assignments how we wanted to. So I usually put like a children's book spin on a lot of the stuff. And so I just continued to develop things. I went to SCVWI conferences, I went to workshops, I was querying a little bit to like editors and art directors from those conferences. And at a certain point, I was like, okay, it's going to be soon time to start querying agents. And I was also posting on Instagram for the Kidlit postcard days, those on those monthly hashtags. And one day a woman started following me, and I just kind of like, I vaguely looked at the Instagram account. It was like a literary thing. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And I just continued on with my day. And I was at work one day in December 21, and I got an email from my now agent, Sorka Fairbank, saying that she was really interested in my work, and she was following me for a bit on Instagram, and she was wondering if I was still looking for representation. And I joke about this with her, that when I first got the email, I thought it was spam. I was like, there's no way an agent's contacting me. And so I was at work as the art teacher. And so on my break, I think I forwarded it to my dad, and I was like, is this legit? Because I was at work. I didn't have time to like look up anything, but I was like really interested. I was like, is this legit? And so he starts looking up and he's like, this is legit. And I was like, oh, I guess I'll respond to her. and so I responded to her. We had a phone call, and I sent her some work that I was working on, some dummies. And she said, I want to take you on. And so I signed on with her. We started sending out some work. It was some book dummies that I put together, but it wasn't until the holiday series that we were really getting a lot of comments, a lot of feedback, and a lot of positivity from different people.
That is beyond incredible. And you also mentioned that you always knew you wanted to illustrate children's books, like even going into college, that was your passion. Why? Tell me more.
When I was in high school, I was mostly homeschooled, and so I took a lot of art classes like during the day. So I was with these people who were not my age at all. They were like, they could be my mom, they could be my grandma, and we were all at a local art studio painting together. And I sort of started to realize art can be a career. And for a while, I wanted to be able to paint really realistically, but it was a struggle for me. And my mom had this book. I forget who the author is, but the book was called Creative Thursday. And it was just about creating for the sake of enjoyment and joy, creating for the sake of creating and just enjoying what you're making. And it kind of brought me back to children's books, because when you're in high school, you're not really reading children's books that often. And I was like, wait, this is really nice. I can make just for joy and just for happiness. Like, it doesn't have to be a photorealistic painting. And so I started to explore that a little more. And when the year before I started at community college, I self-published a book. And that was also a really key moment. I said to myself, this can be a career. This is something that people do. And I ran with it, and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to make books. I want to illustrate joyful, whimsical books, and I want to be able to share that with people.
Incredible. Truly incredible. So many of us happen into it so many different ways, but
Mm-hmm.
like to have this passion and this spark so young and to go after it, um, you should be proud.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, as we think about what's next for you, Hannah,
Mm-hmm.
can you give us any insights into some things you're working on?
Yeah, I'm working on setting up a lot of events, a lot of author and story time events at bookstores. Going to be contacting and getting all set up with some local synagogues and Jewish day schools, and getting the book out there. And for next projects, going on submission for some more stories, more Jewish joy. I don't think you can have enough Jewish joy out there.
There is no way to have enough Jewish joy out there. Tell me in a few sentences, one sentence, a few sentences, what my little book of big Jewish holidays is about.
It's
Bring it
about
home for us.
It's about joy in the celebrations. It's about seeing Judaism as a joy, not a burden. It's about seeing something and saying, I want to give that a try. I want to add that tradition into our family. I want this book to be a welcoming hug to anybody who is interested in learning more about the cultures and the traditions of Judaism.
And for our youngest readers, what is it that you hope that they take away from the book?
I hope that they see that there's a lot of fun to be had in the holidays, and that they say, again, just like the grown-ups, I want to try that. I want to do that. I want to go shake a lulav and etrog. I want to go throw breadcrumbs into the lake for Tashlich for Rosh Hashanah. I want to have a Havdalah candle and sniff some spices to welcome in the new week. I want them to find joy in their Judaism.
That is true Jewish joy right there. And because you have such a fabulous Instagram page where you do share a lot of your work, what is the best way for readers to follow along with your journey?
Instagram is great. It's my Instagram account is that gal who draws, and my website is linked on there. It's hannahshafiroff.com, which is a little bit more curated portfolio. The Instagram is a lot of fun. You'll find fun videos and fun posts and what I'm eating for lunch on my story.
Some travel.
Love it. All of it.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for joining me today, and
You're welcome.
congratulations on your debut coming out soon.
Thank you so much.